Welcome. Start with the song, yeah? Yeah. I'm going to share my screen because you need to do I'm going to say this name database, and you simply have to say the rest of the line.
I see.
You see it?
Yeah.
All right, and we go. Database.
Last name unknown, cosine, email.
Database. I'm going to say in between each line. I should also warn you. That's not good. Try again. Database.
Last name unknown.
Database.
Cosine and email backup.
Database.
Nerd from the preteen Braves.
Database.
Shameless outcast on the Raider of Jimbo and Nelson.
Database.
Things stuffed in Batmobile.
Database.
OCD and Fermat Forgetter.
Database.
Cello player and lover.
Database.
Never gonna turn his head for you.
Is that database cast? Ooh, ooh, ooh. How about that for a theme tune?
That was great.
Bon nuit and guten tag. We are the antiquarians, Lawrence M. Nightingale and Flimsy Rosewater. We are the lickers of dusty tomes located in the bowels of the disused stadium in Springfield Park, down the tunnels to the town hall of Lee, employed to put Simpsons files in spotty archive, to haphazardly document the lives of Springfield's backwaters. Thanks to our cousins, over at the MFIMDB for promoting the show. We are the professionals here.
Yeah, sorry, I was just reading the next line.
That's
we
next
are the
line. That's
professionals
your
here.
line. That's your line.
Oh, look, a spider in the dust.
Oh, there is a spider there, isn't there?
There is.
On those dusty books. What do you make of that?
It's weird. He looks like he's in military getup.
He does a little. We don't get a lot of spiders around here. What with the with that machine that zaps them?
Yes.
You know, that blue thing, zoom, and it zaps all the little animals.
Oh yeah, the cat zapper.
Anyway, hello to you, Mr. Spider. You run about your business because we're busy here. What are we busy with today, Zaz?
We are here.
AKA Lawrence.
Yes, we are here to look at database, the most difficult cast so far in terms of content.
Now, I've linked him as an E-lister. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. On that note, where would you place Maude?
I think Maude floats between B and C. She's a. We're going to come to some actual. We're going to use this database cast to look at some actual Simpsons data, and I was quite surprised that Maude didn't appear higher than she did. According to the stats, she's down in the C's.
Yeah, and if database is E, why is he getting the figure?
Who knows? But I tell you who's less than database. Ham's down there in the G list with email and report card. However, his friend Cosine Tangent, I'm putting down there as an F lister.
I see.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. One thing I've noticed is that as we do more of the casts, we're seeing connections. Do you see any things that are popping up regularly?
Glasses.
Son and other. Yes, we've got a lot of glasses wearers. Poochie is a sunglasses wearer. Disco Stew sunglasses wearer. And now database, regular glasses.
I do have a few. I have more connections to database and Todd than expected.
Okay.
By that I mean I have two in that they sound somewhat similar because it's Nancy Cartwright. And it seems like database doesn't have a mother.
There's later I'll show you a photograph that suggests that maybe he does, but it's confusing.
I see.
The other connection that's popped up a lot is a connection to school.
We are at the school quite a bit, aren't we, actually?
We're at the school again now for the second week in a row. And Maude occasionally turns up at the school to cheer on her children who sometimes go to that school.
Yes.
But that wouldn't be our business. So here's a section. I don't know. I just like him. So, Carl Database, as we'll come to know him, we chose him for a reason, but probably this one is the most flimsiest of all reasons. Well, there's some things that you like or even dislike about database that appeals to him, other than the hundreds of characters we could have chosen.
I do like the voice. I enjoy the nasally, and the way he says certain things are very funny. And I like the glasses, and that's pretty much it. Outside of that, I don't really care for him.
I only have the glasses. That's the only thing I think of. I put a few other things in and asked myself, do you really like that about database? I think I only like the glasses. They are really cool.
Yeah. And again, I like the figure, but I do have some issues with that also.
What are your issues with the figure, and why do you like the figure other than it is a figure?
Scale. It's a weirdly tiny figure. compared to, like, I'd say it's like half an inch smaller than Ralph. And if you look at the actual show, Database is quite big. Like, he's bigger than Bart.
He is
And yeah, so the scale annoyed me. It's like weird. It's one of the only ones they kind of got wrong as well. The rest of them sort of do okay. And I don't know, I just like it when they do. I like how many characters they were doing figures of. So I did like, they got to the real obscure ones around this point, like season. This is like wave 11 or 12. So you're getting the likes of Luan and Database and Mr. Largo, etc. And that's what I was in it for. I don't need any more Barts.
It's the same thing when I'm looking at the Funko Pops, and I was looking through to see if any of them, none of our characters so far have received their own Funko Pop. Disappointing.
Our best bet is Stu.
Our best bet is Disco Stu, but he's not come onto the radar yet. There's like 7 Ned Flanders, though.
Yeah, they do this. Again, it irritates me. The figures, they were bringing out maybe a Bart or a Homer or a Marge every season, and that was a space for the likes of the much forgotten about women of town, like Bernice, Maude, Sarah,
Agnes,
Lindsay.
So what do we know about this chancer? Kyle, last name unknown, Database.
Again, we know very, very little. It's up to speculation. He's sort of more open than Maude. It seems a bit more like Maude is the black sheep rather than the other way around, because all 4 of our casts have been characters that are pretty easy to read, and Maude is not. But Database sort of says what he wants to say, and he is a bit of a strange one in that he's played off as a nerd, but he's not particularly bullied.
I mean, apparently he is, but I haven't seen anything, so it's basically says, I don't know what.
Are you waiting for me to
I'm looking
do something? All right.
I'm looking for something. It basically does suggest that he's prime for Nelson, Dolph, Jimbo, and Kearney as a target for, I believe, in the 2007 Top Trumps card. It suggests that he is a prime suspect for wedgie innovations and a perfect target for water balloon practice. And most of that seems to happen off screen.
Yeah, he seems to be. Again, there's probably a lot of Database stuff in there. His Wiki Simpsons was also pretty lapse with information, whereas the other ones have been pretty good. There's probably quite a lot of good Database content that I just have missed.
Well, let me ask you, are you well stacked with notes as you were with Lunch Lady Doris? Or are you winging it?
I do have notes.
Excellent. So one thing that is clear is he's a grade 5 student, or a student at Springfield Elementary. He's in Bart's class. This is the suggestion?
No, I always thought he was. I thought he was grade 5 and Bart is grade 4. I've never seen him in Bart's class.
Okay. He is the leader and president of the Super Friends, who is a loose knit collection. I don't think they're an official science team, but they are Cosine Tangent, his vice president, Ham, who likes ham radio, Email, Lisa, and Report Card. And Bart, when he finds his comment, he's welcomed in by Kyle Database to the group and given the name Cosmos because of his comet finding. It suggests on his wiki that he is friends with Martin and Ralph. I see little evidence of that. He is a pointless character. He merged with Milhouse and Martin Prince, typical nerd. I don't know who said that, but I don't disagree with it. I don't know if they're bringing anything new that isn't already in many of those characters.
Well, what's strange about the comet episode is that they already had Martin and Milhouse, and they introduced like 5 new nerds. Like, again, Database isn't particularly needed in the way that we're saying Doris was needed because she was the only lunch lady.
Yes.
There's like 7 nerds they can pick from. So that's probably why he doesn't get bullied too much, because Martin and Milhouse take the brunt of it.
Thin out the field. I think basically, if you look at the Super Friends, they are a step more nerdy than Martin or Ralph. Ralph's not nerdy at all, really. But
no, Ralph is bullied. But
Milhouse, step more nerdy than Martin and Milhouse because they're super nerdy. Martin is. He's kind of whiny and nerdy, and it would have made sense for him to be in the Super Friends. But if you look at the getup of these chances, Database is actually the most normal looking and coolest of that gang.
Yeah, I would also argue that he's not really that much of a nerd in his actions.
Well, the thing is that apparently he's loosely based on the character Pat from Saturday Night Live, right? I watched a few of those sketches, and Pat does look a bit like Database. Thick glasses, curly hair. The joke of the Pat thing that was repeated in every single sketch is it's not clear if Pat is a man or a woman. And Pat speaks in this kind of whiny Database, kind of like nerdy, unsure kind of voice. Suffice to say, it's not a great joke to be stretched out over what looks like 20 or 30 sketches of, well, this character's now in the supermarket, but are they a man or a woman? This character's now in the drugstore and they're buying razors, but are they men's razors or women's razors? This person's now getting a haircut. It's like, I only watched two or three, and the joke didn't go too well. Database, however, is clearly, I'd say clearly, in the male category. What with his name being Kyle, and the suggestion is that he's a boy, but who knows?
He seems to identify as a male traditionally.
It would suggest he is bright, articulate, and well-informed, but an outcast. Again, that doesn't quite make sense. I always see him in a group. In fact, he's in 3 different groups in this in these clips that we talk of now. High in intelligence and shamelessness, according to his top trumps card. Medium personal hygiene, low listening skills, low huggability, and low potential for mayhem.
I would argue against all of those things just from the clips we have.
Tell me more.
I would say he's definitely not an outcast because he's always surrounded by people. The only one we can't really confirm is the hygiene one. But the last few, like the mayhem one, he's not averse to it. He's not as rigid or stuck up as, say, I'm going to say Martin, but Martin is also a part of the thing I'm going to mention. So maybe it was just a weird week for everybody, but he's not a fearful nerd. He's not fearful of getting into trouble, it seems.
No, he's kind of a little bit unhinged, and it looks like he's on, they could have pushed the Sheldon Abed kind of paradigm. They could have pushed that suggestion that he was slightly on the spectrum with the way he talks and zones out and then just comes up with really, on the point things. But of course, we might find out that he's not quite as smart as he puts across sometimes. So apparently he does rock up at the comic book store. There's one clip of him talking about Itchy and Scratchy CD-ROM at the comic book store, and he has a run-in apparently with Stan Lee, who breaks his Batmobile in the comic book store.
Both of those very nearly made it into this cast. One of them was in it, and then I removed it because it was the Poochie episode. So I thought, again, a weird connection, but it just didn't add anything. It was just him asking Homer a question about a wizard key, and Homer saying, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, and even the other one where Stan Lee breaks his Batmobile by stuffing a figure of the Thing in there. Obviously, the Thing being a Marvel.
I do remember. I remember Stan Lee being one of the better Simpsons guest stars, actually, like as himself. It was one of the funnier, more natural appearances.
Nice. Give me a minute.
No.
So apparently on the hit and run game, a couple of things happened on the hit and run game. One is that he was known as the nerd and for some reason could drive a real car. Can you back this up?
I can sort of unback this up in saying that I played that game a lot, and I've looked for it recently since reading that the other day, and I don't know what it's talking about.
It could have got him mixed up with who are the 3 adult nerds that kind of look like him?
Yeah, there's one called, I think he's called Doug. And he sort of is just like an old, he's sat right next to him in the Poochie clip as well, actually.
Yeah.
And also asked the question. And it could have easily been him. If he had red glasses instead of blue, he would basically be an adult Database.
Yeah, which is cool, don't go changing. Apparently he's an obsessive compulsive. I don't know if that's true. Feels the need to perform certain routines repeatedly. We're off into conjecture world here. Who knows if any of this is true? He and Cosine, his friend and vice president, both lost the Springfield Elementary race around the school since they wasted time testing the wind speed instead of actually running.
I vaguely remember that. Again, a lot of these things are vaguely ringing a bell, but if it's past season 17 or 18, the odds are I've probably only seen it once.
So one of the things is that not only is he part of the Super Friends, he's also part of the Preteen Braves that were a group of Native American group of kids from from Springfield who wanted to dress and act as Native Americans, and apparently were very uninformed and had to be led by Marge.
Yes, that is part of the clip 3, I think. 4.
Clip 3 has the same kids from the preteen Braves, but now dressed in American U.S. Civil War outfits, not as Native Americans. So they've switched sides.
Yeah, well, it's all sort of, I'll get onto it, but it's all part of the preteen Brave stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here because here is the 2 pictures of Kyle's father, one of whom we agree with. But look here, so we have the picture of Kyle's father that we see a couple of times, but then we have this picture here of a younger, neater looking database a few years before, I guess. Same untucked shirt, which suggests that it is database, not a lookalike, and a father who looks very much like Jeff Goldblum in big red database glasses, and has a lady with him. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, that's interesting. Again, we're going to be looking at the problems with later Simpsons, especially some of my notes about that list of surnames that we see. But they tend to just not check things. They would have thought, oh, we're going to show a database and show him with parents. Shall we check if we've done that before? Nah.
No, I don't know about that. I don't buy that because Database's dad turned up twice. And I don't even know where this weird database clip is from. Is it a future? Maybe it's a future picture and the man is database and the kid is future database junior.
That could make sense. I did look into the episode where you see the prom. You see like Bart and Lisa at their teenage prom to see if he made an appearance, and I couldn't spot him. And I couldn't spot him in the future episode, the Christmas future episode that we see, one of the better ones from the later seasons. And he also wasn't in that. So possibly. But I would also maybe speculate an older brother.
Interesting. Database's father, therefore, is seen a couple of times. And the 2 times we see him with database or talking about database is the guy on the left, which is the non-database looking father. And yeah, where is the mother? There's nothing mentioned. Now, in one episode, which we'll get to, he does actually find love, and
yes,
we'll come to that later. He plays the cello in the school band as well. So not only is he in the Super Friends preteen Braves, he's also in the school band. The dude is literally, for an outsider, never alone.
Yeah, he's always like doing stuff as well. He's full of, again, Maude, not many activities, database, lots of activities. He also plays, like, I'm sure it said he plays like 3 or 4 different instruments, depending on, like, sometimes he's just got a different instrument. But he is in the credits as well in the band room now.
Okay.
Obviously, he wasn't in the first set of credits, he was not in because he didn't get introduced till, season 6. So he's not in the first set of credits, but when they redid them, he is in the band room playing an instrument with the rest of the gang, like Wendell.
He definitely likes... He definitely isn't a loner, for sure, but he does like to push out the envelope and play the forbidden music. Pop goes the weasel. I'm not sure. Maybe suggests that somebody's keeping him on a strict watch, but he doesn't mind occasionally, going out there on a limb to get what he needs. Just out of interest, 2 other characters also called Kyle in the Simpsons.
Oh, yes. I don't know either of them.
One of them is Duffman's stepson, and one of them is a random 3rd grader.
Yeah, easy name.
Easy name.
Generic.
So that's a lot about Kyle. We didn't fancy it up with any quizzes or whatever, but shall we jump into the content?
I fear we should.
Okay. Clip 1, Bart's comet. We are in the lunchroom. Bart sits at the table. Database stands and begins to speak. His voice is a little bit too loud, and it sounds like it's hard for him to speak. Maybe he's a little deaf. I'm not sure. He clasps his hands together and makes a speech. As the first student at Springfield Elementary to discover a comet, and I noticed there were tiny milk cartons in front of him. We are proud to make you a member of our very select group. Incidentally, the most ethnically diverse group I've ever seen in Springfield. Welcome to the Super Friends, he says with his arms outstretched. All of them shout, "Welcome, Super Friends." I was going to get into some tirade about the Canadian superhero team Alpha Flight and how there were also a Beta Flight and a Gamma Flight, and the Super Friends definitely seem that like they're down in the Gamma Flight kind of or Omega
E-team.
They are a C team at best. We get a very nasally Ham who says he's a ham radio fan. I am called Ham. There's email, cosign, report card database, and then Lisa who wiggles her eyebrows in a funny way. Data then waggles his glasses and says, your nickname will be Cosmos. Bart wolfs down his food and leaves the table as quickly as possible. And they all shout, goodbye, Cosmos. Outside the window, I noticed there's rolling hills and a wide open vista. It looks like the playing field of the school is miles long.
Yeah, I'll pause there. I've written that initially his voice sounds very similar to Todd. Like in the first couple of lines, it sort of changed. It's not so much noticeable after that, but his first couple of lines sound very much like Todd. And when I said he wasn't a nerd before, I'm going to rehash that. He's not a meek nerd. Like, there's no shamelessness. He doesn't suffer from the same sort of childhood social things that maybe Martin and maybe not Martin so much, but Milhouse especially, and Bart, they want the other kids to think they're cool. They want Nelson and Jimbo and Dol, etc., to respect them. Whereas Database and the gang are just loud and nerdy and doing what they want as loudly as they want, and that's respectable.
There's two ways. If you look at the Revenge of the Nerd movies from the 80s, where the nerds were like fighting back and proud and strong, or then if you look at someone like Sheldon, who just doesn't know, he just speaks his mind, he just doesn't know. He doesn't care or know any better. Those are two kind of archetypes of the loud nerd.
Yeah, I would speculate that he just doesn't care. Like he's quite happy in who he is, and he's not ashamed of being a nerd. He's, of anything, again, I'd say there's a bit of a Maude snobbery, looking down on the rest of the students rather than being fearful of them. And that's probably why he gets avoided in the bullying more than Martin and Milhouse. Martin and Milhouse sort of interact with Nelson and the gang a little bit more, like the bullies, whereas Database is too busy with all of his clubs and stuff to give them the time of day. So he probably suffers occasionally, but in general, he's too busy doing what he wants to do.
And not and he probably just wouldn't care if it happened. He'd just go and then grumble about it for 10 seconds and then go about his day. He wouldn't give Jimbo Jones much pleasure. He'd be like, it's too easy, and I get none of the crying or whining that I would get from most people. It's just with so much rich nerd pickings around in Springfield Elementary, I'm sure Database manages to sneak between the cracks.
Exactly.
So Database doesn't let it go. As Bart is walking away from the table, Database shouts, perhaps some night you can show us your comet. Bart turns around and says, there it is right there. Database folds his arms and kind of rolls his eyes and says, I make a point never to turn my head unless I expect to see something. Naturally, we can't see your comet in bright daylight and without a telescope. Puts his arms outstretched as if it's a foregone conclusion. Puts his hands on the table. He does not like to be messed with. But you don't need a stupid telescope, says Bart. It's right there. And indeed it is. Email, the ginger-haired Woody Allen style kid. He's Milhouse taken up one more Woody Allen level. Says, oh no, this isn't right. The super friends all press their faces against the window. Database becomes unsettled. It must be coming towards us at a fantastic speed. He turns to Bart.
The delivery of the fantastic speed is probably my favourite Database delivery. The way he says it is super annoying. And it's worth pointing out now that he is Matt Groening's least favourite Simpsons character of all time.
But Groening doesn't give any explanation. I'm starting to feel like when I was doing my notes, yes, super generic. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Super Friends are so ethnically diverse. They tried to get generic nerdy characters from all of the main demographic races, genders, although they're all male except for Lisa.
I would argue that it was a stereotype that Asian kids were smart, so that's probably why they're there.
Well, I think the thing is that you if you just did that, you're leaving yourself open to, even at that point, to some claims of racism, even though that is clearly a stereotype. But if you throw in the American Sheldon nerd, and then you throw in the Woody Allen nerd, and then you throw in, I guess, Report Card is a generic Indian kid. He never speaks or says anything. Maybe when we get to the Report Card cast or the Super Friends cast, we'll find out more. But the more I start to dig into Database, I think there's a little bit about him. I think Groening should have spent more time on a Database spin-off and less time on that Enchanted TV show that's now on Netflix.
I agree. I do remember the commentary, actually, from quite a few years ago. ago where he like I think it's this scene because this is his first appearance, and I remember them talking to him just saying like he just finds him really irritating and annoying. And then I can't remember, he makes, when Database says the thing about the fantastic speed, he does make like a Jesus Christ kind of noise. Like he's instantly irritated by him, which everybody else finds funny. And I do think that's why he started popping up more as like an inside joke, because they all knew that Groening, however you want to say it, didn't like him, so they kept shoehorning him in.
Yeah, I think so. It made me think of, I was talking about the spin-off. So in the IT crowd, apparently the character, I think he was, Gary Linehan at one point, and this could have been a joke, was talking about trying to make an IT crowd spin-off based on, do you remember the episode where Moss wins Countdown?
Yeah.
There's a bad nerd who kind of challenges him to a game of Street Countdown. Apparently he was going to make a spin-off show based on that bad nerd. What was his name? I don't know his name.
That's strange. I don't remember, but I remember him they set him up as he'd always been his rival, didn't they? Like, I remember there's like a rap battle sort of scene, isn't there, in like a car park? I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
But with countdown words.
Well, it says, you have to, we're going to have a game of Street Countdown. It's incredibly dangerous. And Roy says something like, what does it involve? He says, well, it's like regular Countdown. It's the guy who plays Doctor Strange's assistant in the Doctor Strange movie, Wong. Roy says, well, what's different? And he says, well, it's very, what's the danger? He says, well, it's very cold out there. And he says, well, I'll wear gloves. And he says, oh, then you'll be okay. Something like that. However, I feel we may have digressed a little bit here, but still, I'm starting to feel that there's just, if we dig just a little bit below the surface that we haven't been told, there's a little bit to Database.
Yes, I would agree that we are digressing somewhat.
Clip 2, Lemon of Troy, Season 6, Episode 24. We've been here before. We've been here they've been here before on another life. The boys are in Shelbyville. The boys being Bart, Milhouse, Nelson, Martin, Todd Flanders, and Database, which is a weird mix. I like the statue of Shelbyville. I don't know his name, but the Jebediah Springfield of Shelbyville. And he's got two ladies around him, and they're all kind of looking a little bit like they've had a few drinks. They're in the town square. Database strangely has no backpack, even though Bart does. I wondered how it came to be that Bart was more prepared than Database in this, but who knows. Database pipes up. The trail has become more indistinct, and I thought he sounded a bit like Ralph, but if Ralph was a little bit more like had Asperger's, basically. Taking charge, go DB, go Database that I've written. And Database, he's speaking up in a group that has some pretty loud people. Bart, Nelson, Martin. None of these are quiet peeps, but Database takes the lead. I suggest we split up to cover more ground. I noticed here for the first time how his shirt was weirdly partially tucked in, but I noticed that's a thing about him. Bart says, Milhouse, you and me are the Omega team. Todd, you and Data are Team Strike Force. They seem quite happy with this. So he's paired up with our favorite devil herd little sprite, and he himself has somewhat of the devil's curly hair.
He does. I made the note that it is a very weird group of 6, but then the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking, what Database is on the same level, Database and Todd are on the same level as the other male kids they could have used. The only ones that would have made sense were kind of the bullies, but I still think they were trying to keep them isolated and make them seem a bit older than the grade 4 kids. Again, Database is not in the class, and neither is Todd. And the only ones I could think of were Ralph, Uta, Sherry, and Terry were the only other characters I could see going with them and making sense. But sadly, we see Bart and Milhouse's team, and we see Nelson and Martin's team, which Martin calls Team Discovery Channel. And but we don't see Todd or Database's team at all. But we do. There's a point it must be after this actually, because this is when they just got there, where they're hiding under a wall from the Shelbyville versions of themselves, which is basically there's like a Shelbyville Bart and a Shelbyville Milhouse and some generic kids. So there isn't a Shelbyville Database that we see, I don't think. But Todd sort of like snuggles, or like hugs and snuggles into Database for like safety or like out of fear, which I thought was quite interesting, in that Database is sort of protecting Todd and like looking after him, but we never see them together again.
I think, and these guys are also more or less the same people that make up the preteen Braves, right? So at some point they were putting together this small band. The database was kind of in, but he couldn't escape the wrath of Groening for very long.
And it's pretty close to the Comet episode. It's only like 6-7 episodes after that, maybe a bit more, but it's the same season. So I did also make a note of, like, it took 6 seasons. So where was he? Is he like new to the school? Has he just been hiding? Because we've never seen him before. We've seen talent shows, we've seen like things he would have been involved in, and all of a sudden he's just sort of there and, you know, part of things, maybe similar to Roy.
Was he just off camera, or was he just unlucky enough never to be on camera, or did he arrive? Was he a Johnny come lately? And maybe he is, and maybe the boys were bringing him in and wanted him to be part of the group, and then they were like, no. But his Super Friends group was already firmly established, so I don't think he really cared too much about that. But he's far more forceful than I really would have thought. But then again, maybe that is part of his shamelessness, or his kind of ability to just shout things out and not necessarily think about the effects of those things.
Yeah, he's practical as well. What he says is a good idea. It's a practical idea. We should cover more ground. And Bart just says, you know, good idea, I agree. And Bart also calls him Data as opposed to database, which implies a kind of friendship or a kind of respect, because Bart likes Milhouse, but he knows he's a nerd, and Bart doesn't particularly like Martin, but Bart doesn't seem to have any issues with database whatsoever. He seems to quite, you know, even if he doesn't like him, he has no problems with him.
They call him Data, not Data, right? They don't call him Database.
No, Data.
So how Americans say data? They say data or data?
I thought it would just be like Data.
Data. Because of course
Data is very English.
Data is also the cyborg character from the Next Generation, which was already around at that point, but I don't think that I don't see them making that link.
No, me neither.
Fast forward, clip 3, season 12. Martin and Database are on treadmills in the gym. They are sweating. I think this maybe is my favorite clip. Lisa is using a squeegee to squeegee sweat off their back and to collect it in a beaker labeled Nerd Sweat. Database's back makes a particularly squeaky sound, like a squeegee on an almost dry window, yet he's sweating profusely. The scraping seems long, but it feels so right. He seems initially troubled by the squeegeeing, but then begins to smile. Is this because he likes Lisa, or just he likes the squeegee feel?
Did you say long or wrong? I thought the line was, it feels wrong.
No, I think he's saying the scraping seems long. The cliche would be, it feels wrong. It's so wrong, but it feels so right. But I think he's saying the scraping seems long, but it feels so right.
I see.
For a cliche.
Yeah, I thought it was just the cliche.
Well, let's check it and get back to these good people. Don't hold your breath, people. We get back to you in a database too late.
Exactly. I've written, again, no Uta. Uta would have made sense for this treadmill scene probably more so than Milhouse, because he's a chubbier kid, so he would have sweat more. At least there's a new bully in town, a girl called Francine, and Lisa's trying to work out why she bullies who she bullies.
Okay.
Because it's more of a physical bullying. She doesn't tease anybody. She literally just comes in and starts ripping dolls' heads off and punching kids, and she trips Database up at one point, and alongside Milhouse and Martin, but then lets Bart pass without doing anything. So Lisa speculates that there's something in the genetics or in the pheromones to be doing this. And so this is one of the instances where Database is considered a traditional nerd. But again, they were using as many nerds as possible. It's possible we saw the other Super Friends at some point, but I don't remember.
He is the leader of the Super Friends, so I think you would go to him first. Did she ever work out if there was a chemical reason? Maybe this bully just had heightened nerd senses. Yeah,
she was correct, basically.
Okay.
That's how the episode ended. The episode ended with the bully, I think, beating everybody up at the Nobel Prize Awards. I don't mind this. This is only like season 12 or 13, I can't remember, so I'm still on board at this point.
That was something I was going to point out, that they did all sit round watching the Nobel Awards at one point, right?
Yeah, they did. And I'm pretty sure one of them, possibly Database, made like an accurate prediction that came true. Like, he had somebody winning a specific, like the chemistry prize, and then like 4 or 5 years later, that person did win. The other thing I noted was that in this clip, particularly sounds like Professor Frink in the way that he expresses the way he says the sentence. Sounds very Frinkish. And I saw that Yardley Smith apparently said that Frink and Database would make a good team up, which I agree with.
I don't think that's terrible. I don't think it's an interesting team up, but I think it makes a lot of sense. He'd be a classic sidekick.
Yeah, and it's strange that we didn't go down the Doris Squeaky Voice teen route here, or Chief Wiggum and Ralph were introduced separately and were separate characters for 4 seasons before they revealed that he was his son. And Frink and Database, they could have done that where you just saw, Frink and Database walking down a road or sitting in church together, and you would have just thought, oh, he must be his son. Carl, Database, Frink.
That would make sense. It is annoying how on that list that we'll come to, Database's name is cut off. Many of the kids who also have nicknames don't get their nicknames on the official list, but his name is officially on the list of students as Database. We assume but it's in speech marks, which means I think it is a nickname.
Generally, last week I wrote weird and a bit creepy for the last one as well.
I mean, it was, of course, that Lisa has got them out of context. Is very weird and creepy. And I was trying to work out what could be going on, but clearly Lisa was doing some kind of above board experiment. Having someone like Frank squeegee their back would have made it very creepy.
Yeah, that's true. And the shirt being untucked sort of again adds to the thing that he's not a by the books rule following kind of nerd. He's a bit more relaxed, a bit more, he's not into the whole presentation. He doesn't care. Shirt's untucked.
There's just a hint that he's the nutty professor type, just a hint of nutty professorness, right?
Yes, and they already have one of those.
They have a very nutty one, as we've talked about several times already. Clip 4, the Cavalry Kids, also known as the Preteen Braves, are wearing Civil War soldier uniforms. This is Bart, Database, and Ralph. That's correct, right? And they are walking to the mound in the baseball stadium to sing the national anthem. The stadium is packed. Bart puts on some thick, fake Milhouse-style glasses and fake eyebrows, and I wondered whether he was disguising himself as Milhouse. After this prank, Bart says everyone's going to hate those cavalry clods as much as we do. Diamond Joe fixes mic and walks away, and then the 4 of them start singing, and Database is belting this out, stood on a mound with the 3 others. Oh, say, can you see back in row double Z that the team sucks out loud and your fans are all plowed? They're singing some kind of weird parody of the American national anthem. And I thought, Data is in on this and he just goes along with it. It's like, what situation had led to that? Roth Powers cleaned up Barney, Apu's brother, Jasper, they're all in the crowd booing, along with most of the rest of Springfield.
Yeah, I've written not averse to pranking. Again, he's not your run-of-the-mill Martin kind of nerd. The setup to this is the preteen Braves, awesome, and they were sort of cleaning up town and doing a good job, and then another group called the Cavalry Kids, a hard word to say, comes along and starts getting in the way. So this is the way of pranking them. So yeah, he is pretending to be Milhouse, and they're pretending to be this other group so that they can make the town hate them. And yeah, Americans like the national anthem somewhat. So I think this would be more of a heinous crime. This would get more, especially Springfield, where they're prone to mobbery. This is a quick way, and it does work. Within the next minute or two, everybody in town is fighting each other.
Burn this mother down.
Yeah, and I noted that I put good singer question mark because you can't hear him, but I put that Maude would be envious of his confidence with this singer because he's up there in front of so many people doing something that he knows is going to cause a backlash. It's not like he's not like he's Susan Boyle on her first audition. He knows what he's doing is going to cause controversy, and he's still out there. So yeah, he's not the nerd we thought he was when we planned this.
If you annoy him, he's going to go for you. He stood up to Bart when he was walking away in his nonsense. I think maybe the bullies had a run-in with one time and he popped him on the nose and they realised it wasn't worth the effort.
Possibly. There's also, I've written, as we said, it was a weird team-up in the Shelbyville episode. The statue of Shelbyville, by the way, is him and his cousins. Everybody marries the cousins in Shelbyville, but I think that's just it was a Springfield rumour, but then obviously it's true because they've got a statue of him with his cousins. But they obviously don't have a lot of male characters. They needed 8 boys for this, basically, and that's why Database made this A team, because they needed Milhouse to be on the opposing team.
Yeah.
So the opposing team is Milhouse, Martin, Jimbo, and I believe it's Cosine.
Cosine gets a look in even before Rod or Todd.
Well, I thought that, but Rod and Todd joining this type of group wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. It's I don't know, it's more, but Ned and Rod did do the scout thing very early on when they went on the thing with Bart and Homer. So maybe just from that experience, they decided against it in the future. But
I think so.
Yeah, so they're obviously running out of kids to use, basically, which is why Database is on A team. And moments after this clip ends, Martin just floors him with one punch.
Floors Database?
Everybody starts fighting, and Database's fighting counterpart is Martin. Similar to that in the first Pokemon movie when all the clones start kicking the shit out of the normal Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that, but with Simpsons, so everybody's fighting the sort of, like the mirror image. So Database fight. Well, he doesn't really put up much of a fight. Martin just comes over and floors him.
Well, that puts paid to my theory that Database is handy. But, maybe he was caught off guard. Who knows?
I believe so.
All right.
The funniest one is that everybody's fighting the counterparts, then Mo stood in front of Drederick Tatum, the boxer, and he just says, "How did this happen?"
Certainly not a situation I'd like to find myself in. Clip 5, PayPal, season 25. The gym teacher there in the gym at Springfield Elementary, the gym teacher pulls back a divider and sees lots of boys standing. Ralph's third database is there. The rest of them are generic boys from the school. They're in the shadows and look worried. Then they realize, and they smile. They realize what's happening. The other side is a group of girls. Database is shocked. He faints to the ground as the rest of the boys run to the girls on the other side of the gym. There are 14 girls and only 13 boys. Bad planning or Machiavellian? They must find a partner. Lisa has no partner. She looks to Ralph to choose him, but too late as he is snapped up by the barefooted daughter, I believe, of Cletus. Lisa looks glum. She exclaims, and she sees Data, once again with a little bit of his shirt untucked, lying on his back, still passed out, but smiling and holding hands with a very geeky-looking girl wearing black rimmed spectacles, a ponytail, and braces on her teeth. Tough luck, Lisa. Looks like you're dancing with groundskeeper Willie. And Willie says, "Careful of your toes. I got my cleats on."
I just left that last bit in because Willie's one of the better characters later by far. Willie is a comedy mine, and I can't wait for the inevitable Willie cast. Lisa's second choice after Ralph is Database. I'm assuming Milhouse isn't there because Milhouse would have been a go-to because she knows, it's happened before. There was a prom before and she didn't have a date, and she instantly went to Milhouse when she realized everybody was already paired up, or he was already paired up. But this time Database seems to be the second choice for her, which is interesting. We've never really, I suppose they're in the club together, so they must have some kind of off-screen friendship that we don't get to see a lot. Super friends.
I'm guessing she spent quite a lot of time with Database and knows him well and respects his brains.
Which is interesting. Again, last week we looked at the Doris cast, which was very Lisa-centered, and the Database cast seems to be very Bart-centered.
Bart spends a lot of time with him, but it's Lisa who actually is going to be spending way more time with him. She just doesn't get as much screen time. But again, when we get into the real Data, you see why that is. Bart Simpson is essentially the star of the show, isn't he? And if Homer's not around, you're going to see Bart all the time.
Exactly. But yeah, Bart, it would make sense for Database to show up in more Lisa episodes, but it's interesting that he shows up more around Bart.
But it's funny that Database passes out without knowing this beautiful, perfect Database girl is there, unless, of course, he sees her and then passes out, and their eyes met for a second across the room, because all of his confidence, all of his bravado disappeared, and he passed out again like Moss from the IT crowd at the mere suggestion of lady things.
Well, I've written it. He does seem apprehensive, and it's strange because this isn't a all-boys school. These kids spend all day interacting with each other. They're always around each other, but with the lifting of this gym barrier, everything seems to have changed, and he's he can't handle it for some reason. But he could leave leave this room and have like 6 more classes with that mystery girl. We don't know. But I speculate that she's in the 5th grade with him.
You know how schools work. They're mysterious places and big organizations. You can pass these people every day, and it's only when that situation arises that suddenly something happens, a spark is lit.
True. I just thought it was weird that it seemed like they were playing it like he was almost scared to meet the girls, but he already knows all of them. And like, he's in the band. He's not an outcast. He's around all of these. The first girl you see is Alison Taylor, I believe. And she, again, prominent band member, sort of similar to Lisa. She'd be the most likely next female super friend, but he faints at the sight of her.
I think it's a very different scenario when walking around and having to just work with these girls, and the gym teacher clearly is setting them up for something. I don't know why they're purring up, you see. So
true. I can't remember. I think they're square dancing.
Exactly. I was going to say this, right, because I don't know if when you went to Eddie's, our school, they still did line dancing and square dancing and country dancing at Christmas, but just before Christmas we had to do it, and we'd always have to choose partners, and it was very nerve-wracking. These were young ladies that you were with in every single class. Some you liked, some you didn't like, but suddenly having to choose them and then dance together, my goodness, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, I would agree, actually. No, they didn't do that. They must have stopped doing that.
Bloody political correctness gone mad, isn't it, I bet?
Probably. It seems, again, it's even in 2001, maybe they thought maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
It was all good fun. I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, me too, actually. One sec. Oh, I could
Moving on.
hear the radio from downstairs so loudly. I could hear it almost on the same level as I can hear you.
Really? That's weird. Clip 6. Tapped out level 44. Database's intro to database recovery. Database says, "Gah, by Doctor Who's TARDIS, I'm back. Thanks for tirelessly working for my return, good citizens." Mo says, "Who the hell is that?" "Super friends to the rescue," says Database's card. Database says, "To once more smell the grass and hear the jingles of home is wondrous. Bart, I hear we got a new kid. Oh, it's Database. Database, I was hoping for Herbert Wong. Data, I promise my presence will delight. Homer, whatever, nerd burger." And then we just see Database walking around trying to perform the following tasks of being alone, browsing magazines on code, amongst other things.
Yeah, we should take Tapped Out with somewhat of a grain of salt, because I think the Simpsons writers are involved, but the Maude quote, when it says, "When you get Maude," tagline in the box is, "Wait, who's Edna Krabappel?" So from that onwards, I don't believe any of this stuff, really.
We established maybe that Tapped Out is in its own parallel universe, maybe. I think we got to go with that.
Yeah, I would say that Tapped Out is definitely a different universe, because you control how Springfield looks and who's there. So I would agree that Doctor Who is a very easy reference for a nerd. It's like, oh, it must have been like 2014, 15, and Doctor Who got pretty big within the last 15 so years in America, didn't it? More so than before.
So what I noticed is that Community has Inspector Space-Time, which is an ongoing reference. The Big Bang Theory references Doctor Who often, and this is a pretty, another on-the-nose reference to Doctor Who. So I think it's just a very big, easy go-to to show that I'm into geek culture. And the hard thing must be to put something that's geeky enough that everyone knows that geeks like it. There's only a few of those things. And if you like Dungeons & Dragons, you're a geek. And if you like Doctor Who, you're a geek. So it's kind of like, it's an easy way to signpost that these are geeks.
Yeah, easily defined. I did write Inspector Space-Time down, and it's more interesting to do that to me than just directly reference Doctor Who. Like, it's interesting that they don't. It seems very Simpsonsy that they would have their own version of Doctor Who as opposed to just referencing Doctor Who. But early Simpsons maybe would have done something along those lines. Like, again, they watch Itchy and Scratchy. They don't just sit and watch Tom and Jerry.
No, and so I think had they made a TV show, had Bart or Lisa, had one of them been a bit more geeky and a television watcher, a combination between Bart and Lisa, they might have had a favorite TV show that was Inspector Space-Time.
And again, with Bart's super into comic books, but it's Radioactive Man. It isn't Superman.
Yeah, and it's super mainstream. It's like, yeah, and this is in the Tapped Out universe. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of they couldn't have just popped up and then said some weird Doctor Who knockoff. They'd have had to
Yeah.
establish it first.
True. It's just strange that they don't have anything established for. But again, if Doctor Who was big in the 90s, that was sort of the only time it was away, really, wasn't it? Like, they did the Paul McGann movie and then it was away for like 10, 15 years. So maybe that's why. Back to database. Why is Mo interested? Why is Mo delivering these lines?
It's pretty weak. Who the hell is that? I hear we got a new kid. Whatever, Nerdburger. Golden back and forth between those chaps, to be honest.
No. Bart seems to have gone off him at this point in that he was like, oh, it's database. Whereas every other time we've seen them together, no problems at all. Seems to quite like him. Hubert Wong, again, let's back into the nerds. So we have ham, email, report card, cosine, and then we have Hubert Wong, who is a really smart Asian kid in Lisa's class in the 2nd grade.
Okay.
He's sort of been, I think he has sort of always been around, like in the early days. But then there is also the kid, more diverse than we assumed. There's the Asian kid who was doing the Cher thing in the talent show in the Doris cast, who is that isn't Hubert Wong, because Skinner says like good job, whatever your name is, I can't remember, and it isn't Hubert. So yeah, they've got quite a lot of nerds or like overachievers at the school, which is probably why Bart looks so bad. Bart's probably a relatively average student, but compared to the Martins and the databases and the Hubert Wongs of the school, he's nothing.
We just hear about the good ones, though, don't we? The ones that stand out. The fact is that every school's got its high achievers. But given that there are, multiple Chinese kids, I'm going to make the assumption that cosine is also Chinese. There are no Chinese adults in Springfield that we know of, are there?
Correct. When I was making the picture for Community for the Doris cast, I was looking for... Chang's Chinese, isn't he? Chang's not Korean.
The character of Chang is Chinese, yeah, but the actor who plays him is Korean.
Oh, is Ken Jeong Korean?
Ken Jeong's Korean, yeah. That's the joke they keep making in there, where he keeps trying to read Korean and says he's Korean, and they say, no, you're Chinese. He does it a few times.
Oh.
Yeah, he's
of course. But yeah, Cookie Kwan is the only adult Chinese character other than the time Lucy Liu appeared when they went to China.
Okay.
But yeah, no adult Chinese men from what I can see. Only one Japanese woman, and she's introduced quite late on. No Japanese men, but yeah, a sort of influx of...
There is a Japanese man. Akira is early on.
Oh yeah, Akira, of course.
They go to the restaurant a few times, but...
George Takei.
Oh, is that... Does George Takei play Akira?
I think he played him like once or twice, and then the rest of them are Hank Azaria doing an almost spot-on George Takei impression.
I think going back to database and voices, started off with Nancy Cartwright. At some point, Tress MacNeille has done it, and Pamela Hayden also had a go in there. So it's clear that these D&E listers, it doesn't, whoever's on the site at the point, they're just going to have a go at the voice.
Yeah, the kids are very, the voices are very fluid, like all through from the early days. Like there's an episode, I think it's the Lisa's Pony one. I'll send you a clip later where Ralph says something about Lisa and he has Nelson's voice, and kids like Wendell and Lewis, and not so much Sherry and Terry, but more of the male characters, again, like the G-listers, like Richard, Lewis, Wendell, their voices change consistently. Their voices change always between Pamela Hayden, Russi Taylor, who died last year, who was Martin, Sherry and Terry, and Uta, and Tress MacNeille. The three of them like vary, but I can't find any examples of database being voiced by anybody other than Nancy Cartwright, but I didn't look that hard.
I suggested the later ones maybe were Tress MacNeille. It's one of the bugbears that keeps coming back, that they didn't develop any characters any further, even like Wendell, who's been thereabouts for 30 years. And
Wendell, I like. The Wendell figure is one of my favourite figures, and Wendell is one of my favourite kids, actually, from the school. But yeah, no development, nothing. Richard, Wendell, Louis, database, etc. Maybe they get a line every 3 or 4 years, and the voice will be different.
Opportunity wasted. You know why? Because in a cartoon, you don't have to do anything. But the thing is that if you get characters that are played by humans, you have to actually go out there, bring them in, give them lines, think about what they're doing, and they're even if they're just just in the background. They have to have something about them.
Exactly. I've found whenever I'm writing anything, if I've written something for me and like my friends to read, if they say there's like 8 characters in a scene, I have to try and give them all a line. Whereas if it was actually made and you could see it, they wouldn't all have to speak because you wouldn't have to hear them to know they were there.
Yeah.
Or to be reminded that they were there.
As it has been said, not by Shakespeare, but by somebody who's smart, all plot is fairly arbitrary. Your characters are the transcendent things in the writing.
Derrida. Exactly. I like Tapped Out though because everybody does, like what we're sort of saying here about character development, everybody does get their moment in the sun because when you unlock a character, they get a series of like 5 or 6 missions as part of their own independent story. So every single character in that game has one storyline at least, including like what we saw with the database stuff was his introduction, but then he goes on to, you have to make him do certain tasks, and then once you've completed it, he's just part of your town. But so everybody does get a moment in the sun, which is nice, and that's probably where we're going to learn the most obscure stuff. But again, we can't really take it completely as fact.
We didn't really learn anything from that other than database went away and now he's back, and he at least knows who Doctor Who is, and suggestion he likes them.
One last thing, the only thing I could mine out of this is that he seems to be very pro Springfield. He says something about enjoying like the jingling bells of home or something, and that's also backed up by the fact that he's one of the kids who goes into Shelbyville to get the lemon tree back. That shows that he's pro Springfield.
And he's proud.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk the list. We're going long here. Let's talk the list. So we see file database cut off. We see cosine, and his real name is cosine tangent. We see Bort Sampson, the twins whose last name is Macklebury, Gary Chalmers III, Rod and Todd. What's your problem with this list, Zasler?
Here's my problem with this list. I've pros and cons. There's a kid on there called Happerblatt, and there was a colonel early on called Colonel Happerblatt. So I thought that was a nice reference callback to that, and it's a funny name. Bort Sampson, cheap fan service. Easily cheap. It's like, oh, everybody loved that Bort joke. Let's make his surname Sampson. Isn't that great? No, it's cheap. There is no Gary Chalmers III unless Chalmers himself is on this list for some reason.
How do you know there's no Gary Chalmers III, who may or may not be related to Gary Chalmers, the Super Nintendo?
Well, who is the second Gary Chalmers?
Maybe Gary Chalmers, the superintendent, is Gary Chalmers II. Gary Chalmers.
Maybe. He has a daughter called Shauna, but outside of that, we don't know that he has any other kids. And especially, why would he send his kid to this awful school that he hates?
But he doesn't even live nearby, we're guessing, because he does.
Yeah, no. He's the superintendent. He's got a large area to cover.
As we know from Steamed Hams, he had to get some pretty good directions to get to Skinner's house.
Yes. Janie's surname is Powell, not Jackson. Wendell's surname is Borton, not Queasley. Kearney's surname is Zizowicz. Dolph's surname is Starbeam. So 4 names there that would have taken them 30 seconds to look up and think, have we given these characters surnames before? And they did not, because they can't be asked.
Check for
I did like jaundice, sniffles, and scabies as the Spuckler kids.
Alrighty, let's move on into some database art today. It's slim pickings. Here is I'm going to share my screen. First up, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Nobody out there wants to make database art. There's very, very little around, and if you find it, please share it with us. There's only 2 in here that I would even say are decent, but the other 2 are at least worth talking about. If you go on the minecraftskins.com, literally every single Simpsons character seems to have a Minecraft skin. So if you really want to to play Minecraft and have database as your character, go for it. It's not even particularly faithful because his shirt's completely tucked in. He's
very hench as well. I know they're blocks, so they can't really do anything, but he looks bulky and somewhat buff. It's not terrible.
It's not terrible. He's very similar to a lot of others. If you look at them, they're all pretty similar. But I ain't gonna knock Minecraft user username who has made it. Now this next one, someone spent a lot of time going through and making Pokemon versions of The Simpsons. It's somewhat crudely rendered, but I do like it. There's some cool ones.
Yeah.
Hans Moleman now seems to be some kind of lizard. I'm no Pokemon expert, so I only know the big ones. Millhouse over there is some kind of Douglet. Krusty as Mr. Mime.
Yeah, these are all. I was looking for a Maude. I can see Rod and Todd.
Yeah, but if you zoom right in, you do get as what's that one called with a magnet for the face?
Magnemite.
You do
Oh
get.
yeah, I see it.
See here?
Yeah, cool. Crude but cool. Weird choice. I don't really know why. Maybe they were just running out at that point because I suppose they haven't done them all. So they've obviously made conscious choices. Kang and Kodos are just on there as well as themselves.
It looks like they're themselves, but maybe they made a slight change that suggests. Oh, there you go. I'm zooming in on a few.
Oh, yeah.
But have a look around it. It's pretty cool. Someone spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah, I spot Luan.
Okay.
Yeah, the database is pretty good. I like the one eyeglass thing is pretty cool, and I wish to see it sort of more high definition or coloured would be cool.
High def. I don't know where this. I don't know who drew that. The name has got lost in the ether. But this is a cool one. This is probably one of the only good ones. And this is from Eat My Square Shorts on the Instagram platform. He or she draws these characters as squares. And we get a database well rendered with his nose sticking over the edge of the screen. That's a cool one.
I like stuff like this. I like when they have a template and apply it to all the characters. And I like when they get to the sort of, like the G-list, like database. These is when these kind of characters get the moments to shine when they do a lot of characters. So it's cool, it's simple, it's easy. You know exactly who it is if you know who database is. And the colour. I do like the 2 lines of colour to represent. It would have been.
Shorts has done some cool drawings, and I think what happens when you down into the EFG list is you get the quirks coming out, and those big red glasses are really cool. Iconic.
Yeah, the only thing I would have added is maybe again to represent the untucked shirt, maybe half of the green line go over the purple line.
I get it. Clever. And then we get onto the figure, stackable, the detachable glasses. We get to see DB without his glasses. The untucked shirt, although it's grey instead of green. But, I'll give it them. It must be hard to render.
Yes, it must have been hard to. Yeah, I've never noticed the colour being wrong, actually. The figure's cool, yeah. I've lost the glasses because I got that figure about 17 years ago. And things have been lost in transitions. But yeah, my only issue is that it's tiny. Stood next to like Uta and like Lisa and stuff, and Sherry and Terry is like significantly smaller when he should be the same height, if not bigger. Other than that, solid.
Poor database. And the last one that we're going to come to today is a young lady called Cavity Sam, who has drawn a pretty fantastic drawing of herself on a bench sitting with database, who looks overjoyed. This is one thing that's clear, is that not many people have taken liberties and done things with database art. The so far the Simpsons Pokemon crossover is the furthest out there. And this is a pretty accurate rendering of database, and I'm guessing Cavity Sam. Beautiful, very authentic Simpsons looking drawing.
I would argue that this is the most professional, maybe outside of the stew cake, this is the most professionally accurate art we've looked at. Like, this looks like it could just be a screenshot.
You mean the Doris cake or the stew cake?
The stew cake, just because of how, I don't know, it's a 3D cake. Like, it must have been very hard to do. Whereas, this looks like it's just exactly out of the show. So this is our most sort of accurate, but again, it's not without charm. That doesn't mean that it looks not like an artist has done it themselves.
It's got a charm.
I like it a lot.
He's, we said the other week that there's everyone out there has, no matter how obscure the Simpsons character is, there's one person out there for whom it is their favorite. And Cavity Sam claims that Database is her favorite character. So, hey, who knows? Maybe if it doesn't seem too weird, I'll send her this link and tell her that we featured her art, and it is brilliant. So thank you for your hard work, Cavity Sam. If you are listening, it's a beautiful piece of artwork.
It is. The shading in particular, I always sort of struggle. Well, I've only just started doing things on the computer in terms of colour and stuff, but shading is an area I am bad at. So the shading on this just adds another level of professionalism.
You could learn a lot from Cavity Sam. You know what, Zaz? All this Simpsons date. Shall we wrap through it? A couple of minutes?
Yeah, let's go through it super quick.
This first chart here suggests that Simpsons started off pretty good, got really good in seasons 3 to 8, and then took a bit of a drop off, and it essentially has been fairly terrible. Now, I think these are on IMDb ratings, and lowest episode of all time is the Lady Gaga one from season 23, which I've not seen, but is constantly referred to as the worst episode ever.
Yeah, people really hate it. I, at the time, as a Gaga fan, I enjoyed it, but in retrospect, yeah, it's sort of a culmination of everything that people dislike about modern Simpsons, including myself, in that it went from being the show that parodied pop culture to being the show that just was pop, or like just used pop culture as it was. Like Lady Gaga played herself, whereas in the early days, yeah, you know, when Jackson turned up, he played Michael Jackson, but they did something interesting with it when they did the whole, you know, he's bald and fat and hasn't done nothing to nobody. But yeah, Gaga just played Gaga and turned up for no reason. She had some kind of mystical power to see that Lisa was in trouble. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
but it's a sad colour. It's a sad colour chart to look at.
It gets more Maude in the middle, but it basically suggests that the last truly classic episode was season 12, episode 18, which would have been
Praiseland. No, people don't like that. It's around Praiseland, though.
Trilogy of Error. A Day in the Life of Homer. Yeah. Homer's thumb is sliced off when he tries to sneak a brownie from Marge. So it's, I'm not sure if that one jumps out.
It is a good one.
Maude's final appearance, which would have been season 11, episode 13. Was an 8.3. People liked it. It was up there.
Are you sure?
We'll look back. Let's check. But Simpsons Meet Data Visualization by Adam Reevesman suggests that the total number of lines, Homer Simpson is far, far ahead. He's almost 30. Wow. He's almost double Marge, who's second, and Bart, who's up there. And as you can see, the fifth, the most spoken lines outside of the family. Would you have put that as C. Montgomery Burns?
I would have, possibly. It would have been between Burns, Moe. I probably would have said Burns, Moe, Wiggum, Barney, or Ned, or Grandpa, actually. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Burns is quite surprising. No other women on that list other than Marge and Lisa.
That's true. In fact, that's across the board. So I'm going to show you one last one. I'll save the other data for another time. Supporting cast here, basically the top 50 non-family members.
Oh, yeah.
Burns is up there. He's the top non-family member who speaks. You have to go down to Krabappel at like number 15 to get a first woman.
I was going to say Edna was the most likely.
Ned's up there. He's fourth after Moe and Seymour. And would you like to hasten a guess as to some of the characters further down the list and where maybe Maude appears?
Maude's going to be way down there. Who the hell is Announcer?
I don't know who Announcer is.
I was going to say, did they mean Brockman? But Brockman's there. Unless they just mean the generic, you know, like over the Springfield Speedway. Yeah, like the announcer voice. But that's stupid.
We're down here. We got Barney way down, Martin way down, Fat Tony and Lou. We're down to Agnes Skinner, Snake. The Rich Texan appears above Miss Hoover. Judge Schneider, Maud Flanders, nowhere in that top 50.
So Hoover is Roswell's most prominent character, which is interesting. I would have said it was probably Helen, but Helen not on here.
Ladies, they don't get a look in. So there's more data to look at. We might come back to it another time. But one thing that struck me before we move on to a song was that the most popular location for words to be spoken is Springfield Elementary School by quite a long way.
Yeah, that makes sense because Bart and Lisa are both there, whereas Homer and Marge are never. Like, Marge isn't at the power plant. Marge isn't at Moe's. So the fact that it's not the house is interesting, though.
The house is way down. In fact, the Flanders home almost gets as many lines as the Simpsons living room.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Absolutely.
And the church.
Yeah.
The church has more than the Simpsons. I suppose it's only the living room, though. It's not the entire house.
It's true, but nowhere else in the house actually pops up. That's from The Simpsons about the data analysis of 27 seasons reveal the show's most significant side characters, a pattern of patriarchy and declining TV ratings. So it's fallen from close to 30 million in the first few seasons down to under 2 million, which is still a good haul, but a long way from its heyday. Shall we wrap up this database cast with a data song?
Sure.
Who's going first?
You.
I'm clapping my hands together because you've discovered a comet, Bart.
Bernard sits at the table.
Welcome, my spur friends, arms outstretched. I'm called Ham. This is cosine.
Raised eyebrows.
Waggles his glasses.
The super friends press their face, sagging out the window.
Database is unsettled.
Taking charge, go DB.
Go DB. I suggest we split up. My shirt is weirdly partially tucked in.
Sweating profusely, nerd sweat.
Squeegee off the nerd sweat.
The preteen braves.
Fake eyebrows. Millhouse disguise.
Hate ethos, cavalry clouds.
Gym teacher. Pull back divider. It's a PayPal. Fun times.
Leningrad.
Cheeky Willy. Careful of your toes.
Timelessly.
Whatever nerd burger.
Kyle database cut off.
Kyle database cut off.
Terry Mackleberry.
Terry Michael cut off.
Rod and Todd.
The end.
The end.
Gosh, that was either the end of season 3 or the beginning of season 4. Who would have thought that the database cast would be our longest cast yet?
Exactly. That's a 20-minute meander at the start. Probably didn't help.
Probably did help. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a good break. We'll be back in 3 Earth weeks with season 4 of the Maudecast, or they will be. What would be a good song to finish this?
Something by Kraftwerk.
Yes. The Model, The Robot, or maybe Video Killed the Radio Star by Buggles. Anyway, bye.
Maybe. Bye.
Wow, that was a long one. It's a good idea.